Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're diving into the terrifying moment when a hidden gas leak turns Na's quiet kitchen into a nightmare until Alex bursts in just in time to save her and baby Henry. If you enjoy the story, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next videos. Late afternoon light slid through the kitchen window in pale gold, landing softly on the dew-kissed vegetable leaves Na had just rinsed. The small house felt unusually calm, one of those rare pockets of peace that show up when you've been running on routine for too long and the world finally gives you a quiet minute. Na stood at the gas stove, stirring a pot of soup that bubbled gently as if it had its own steady heartbeat. The smell of fried shallots and minced meat drifted through the room, warm and familiar, blending with the faint scent of clean water and vegetables. It was the kind of smell that made a home feel like a home, even when life outside was heavy. Against the wall, in a small wooden crib, 2-month-old Henry lay half asleep. His cheeks were soft and rosy. One tiny fist held the edge of his blanket like he was gripping something important. Every so often, his eyelids fluttered, then settled again. He made a quiet coo, barely a sound, and Na smiled without even realizing she did. She had learned this rhythm so well she didn't need to think about it anymore. Stir, check the flame. Listen for Henry's breathing, glance at the clock, cut vegetables, stir again. Her body moved on memory, and for once, the memory felt comforting instead of exhausting. Outside in the garden, Alex sat in a weathered wooden chair with a book open on his lap. He looked relaxed in the way a man can look relaxed while still scanning the horizon. He turned pages slowly, but every few moments his gaze drifted toward the kitchen window, as if he was silently guarding the fragile calm inside. No one could have guessed how quickly it would all shatter. Na hummed a soft lullaby under her breath. Her voice was barely more than air, light and steady, the kind of sound you make when you want the world to stay gentle. She didn't notice the first warning, because it didn't announce itself loudly. It arrived the way danger often does, quietly, patiently, invisible. Under the stove, the gas cylinder was leaking. Not enough to blow the flame out, not enough to make the burner sputter. Just enough to release an unseen threat into the warm air, waiting for the smallest spark to turn it into something alive. Time stretched strangely in those minutes, almost slow, almost frozen, like the house itself was holding its breath. Then a scent drifted through. At first, Na thought it was something from outside, maybe damp soil, maybe smoke from a neighbor's cooking fire. But this smell was different, sharper, metallic, faint, like a thought you can't quite catch. She frowned slightly and kept stirring, trying to place it. Her eyes flicked to the flame. It looked normal, steady, blue, calm, and controlled. The soup continued to simmer as if nothing was wrong. Henry stirred in the crib, making a soft little sound, and Na's attention shifted automatically. She glanced at him, her face softening again. "Shh, my love," she murmured, smiling. "Mommy's here." She told herself she was just tired, that her senses were playing tricks. She turned back to the cutting board and began slicing carrots. The knife moved in a smooth rhythm against the wood, making a gentle tap-tap sound that blended into the background like ordinary life. What she didn't hear because her own routine masked it was the faint hiss coming from beneath the stove. The smell grew more distinct, creeping into the warmth, slipping into corners of the kitchen like it was looking for a place to hide. Na's brow tightened again. She paused, inhaled once, then kept moving anyway, as if staying normal could keep everything safe. Outside, Alex turned a page and then didn't. Something about the moment felt off. He couldn't name it. He just lifted his head slightly, eyes narrowing toward the kitchen window. It wasn't a clear alarm, more like a premonition, a flicker of unease that made his hand stop mid-motion. Still, he didn't rise immediately. The yard was quiet. No shouting, no obvious danger, just late afternoon sun and the faint sound of a pot bubbling. Then it happened. A louder hiss erupted, sharp enough to cut through the room, and in the same breath, a small burst of flame shot out from the leak near the cylinder. It was fast, violent, unfair. The flame licked up Tuna's sleeve like a hungry animal and caught on fabric for a split second before she even understood what she was seeing. A jolt of pain exploded across her right forearm, white hot, instant, shocking. The ladle slipped from her hand and clattered onto the floor. Tuna yelped, a sound ripped out of her chest before she could control it. In the crib, Henry startled awake. His face scrunched, and a piercing wail burst out, fragile and razor sharp, slicing through the kitchen like glass breaking. The cry didn't just fill the room, it filled Tuna's entire body with terror. Smoke began to rise. The air turned harsh. The crackle of flame sounded like cruel laughter. Tuna grabbed her burned arm instinctively, eyes watering from pain and smoke, and for one dizzy second she felt her knees threaten to fold. Her skin was already blistering, angry red, and the throbbing pain surged up toward her shoulder like it wanted to swallow her whole. But then Henry cried again harder, and maternal instinct snapped her upright like a string, yanking her back from collapse. She turned toward the crib, moving too fast, breathing too shallow. The room spun slightly, but she forced her eyes to stay on Henry. Smoke stung her eyes. Tears fell not only from the burn, but from panic. "It's okay, baby, it's okay," she whispered, though her voice trembled so badly, the words barely held together. Henry wailed, face flushed red, tears rolling down his plump cheeks. He was too small, too new, too innocent for this. Tuna reached for him with her left arm, trying to shield him from smoke and heat with her own body. At the same time, she stretched her trembling hand toward the stove, forcing herself to reach past pain to shut something off anything, before the flame turned into an inferno. Her burned arm throbbed like thousands of needles piercing flesh. She bit down on her lip so hard she tasted blood, fighting not to scream because screaming wouldn't save Henry, only moving would. She scooped Henry up, pressed him tight to her chest, and turned her body so the baby was away from the stove. Her left hand patted his back in short, desperate motions. "It's okay," she kept whispering. "Mommy's here. Mommy's here." But her voice cracked, breaking under pain and fear. The smoke thickened. The kitchen that had felt warm and safe minutes earlier now felt like a trap. Tuna's lungs burned when she inhaled. Henry's cries bounced off the walls, making the room feel smaller, tighter, more suffocating. And outside in the garden, Alex heard it all. The sharp pop of flame. Tuna's cry. Henry's scream. Alex's book slipped from his hands and fell onto the grass. His face transformed in an instant from calm to pure panic. His chair scraped backward as he shot to his feet, knocking it over without noticing. He sprinted toward the house, bare feet slamming against the stone path. His breath came in ragged gasps, not because he couldn't run, but because the sound of his son crying had turned the world into one urgent mission. Every step felt like counting down the seconds of life itself. He shoved open the back door, charging down the hallway. The smell hit him before he reached the kitchen, acrid smoke mixed with gas, sharp and dangerous. It punched into his lungs and made his eyes sting. Henry's cries and Tuna's sobbing fused into a single horrifying sound that drove Alex faster. He reached the kitchen doorway and froze for half a heartbeat at what he saw, smoke billowing, Tuna clutching Henry, her face pale with terror, her arm bright red and blistering. That half second was all his body allowed. Alex plunged in. He didn't think, he moved. He lunged toward the gas valve first, because his brain knew one thing clearly: stop the source or everything else is meaningless. He twisted it hard. The hiss faltered. He grabbed a towel and smothered the remaining flame with brutal urgency, slapping it down until the fire died. Smoke still swirled, but the worst danger had passed. Alex turned to Tuna, voice hoarse from fumes and fear. "Tuna, are you all right?" Tuna looked up at him, tears streaking her face. Henry still screaming in her arms. Her burned arm shook. Her whole body shook. But Alex was here now, solid, real, between them and the danger. And for the first time since the flame erupted, Tuna felt the tiniest drop of relief break through the terror. Alex moved closer, eyes locked on Tuna's right arm. The skin was already angry red, blistering in patches, the kind of burn that makes you feel sick just looking at it. Tuna flinched when he reached out, not because she didn't trust him, but because pain had turned every nerve into a live wire. "I'm here," Alex said quickly, voice rough. "Breathe. Just breathe." Henry was still crying hard, tiny body trembling against Tuna's chest. His wails bounced around the smoky kitchen and made Alex's heart pound like it was trying to break free. He reached over and gently stroked Henry's head, then looked back at Tuna. "We need to get you out of here," he said. Tuna nodded, lips shaking. She tried to stand, but her legs felt weak. Alex supported her elbow with one hand while keeping his other hand ready to steady Henry if needed. The smoke was thinning now, but the air still stung. The kitchen that had been warm and normal just minutes ago now smelled like burnt cloth and danger. Alex guided Tuna into the living room and opened windows with fast, decisive movements. Cool air rushed in, clearing the space little by little. Henry's cries began to soften, not because he was suddenly okay, but because he could feel the frantic energy easing. His sobs turned into hiccups, then sharp little whimpers. Tuna rocked him instinctively, patting his back with her left hand, murmuring the same lullaby she'd been humming before everything went wrong. Her voice cracked, but she kept singing anyway because the sound was for Henry, and also for herself. Alex returned to the kitchen one more time to make sure the flame was fully out and the gas was truly shut off. He checked the cylinder, sniffed the air, and felt anger rise in his chest, anger at the leak, at the timing, at how close it had come to stealing everything. But he swallowed it. Anger could wait. Tuna couldn't. He grabbed the first aid kit from the cabinet, then came back to the living room and knelt beside her. "Let me see," he said gently. Tuna shifted Henry higher against her chest, trying to keep him calm while exposing her arm. The moment Alex's fingers hovered near the burn, she winced. Tears filled her eyes again, silent and hot. Alex swallowed hard. "I'm sorry," he whispered, and the words weren't about the burn alone. They were about the seconds he'd been outside, about the thought that if he'd stayed closer, maybe it wouldn't have happened. Tuna shook her head weakly. "Don't," she breathed. "You saved us." Alex didn't argue. He just worked. He brought a bowl of cool water and gently rinsed the burned skin. Tuna sucked in a sharp breath and bit her lip, shoulders trembling. Alex moved slowly, deliberately, terrified of causing more pain. He kept his face calm, but his eyes were soaked with worry. "It's cold," Tuna whispered through clenched teeth. "I know," Alex said softly. "It'll help." Henry had quieted now, exhausted from crying. His head rested against Tuna, warm and heavy, and he made small snuffling sounds like he was still recovering from fear. Alex glanced at him, then back at the burn, and felt his chest tighten again because this wasn't just an accident. It was a reminder of how fragile their safety really was. When the burn was rinsed, Alex opened the gauze and began wrapping Tuna's arm, layer after layer, white bandage over red skin. His hands still trembled slightly from the adrenaline, but he forced them steady. He wrapped carefully, not too tight, not too loose, checking her face after every turn. Tuna watched him quietly. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but shining with something deeper than gratitude, love, mixed with the relief of being protected. The room had gone strangely quiet now, as if even the house was recovering from shock. Only the soft rustle of bandage and the sound of Henry's breathing remained. Alex's voice came out hoarse. "I should have been closer." Tuna lifted her uninjured hand and placed it over his. The gesture stopped him. "It's okay," she whispered. "We're all safe now." Alex held her gaze. And something in him cracked, not in weakness, but in the realization of what he almost lost. He secured the final strip of gauze, then sat down beside her on the floor, close enough that his shoulder touched hers. Without asking, he leaned in and wrapped an arm around both Tuna and Henry. drawing them into his embrace. Tuna let her head rest against him. Henry, half asleep, shifted once and then settled, small breaths evening out. The kitchen still smelled faintly of smoke, and the windows were wide open, letting in cool evening air. Outside, the late sun had begun to sink, pouring soft golden light across the floor. The same light that had been there before the accident, now returning like a quiet reminder, the day didn't end in tragedy. It ended in survival. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Alex simply held them, feeling the warmth of Henry's tiny body and Tuna's trembling breath. He listened to the rhythm of their breathing and realized something with painful clarity. Love wasn't the big dramatic gestures. It was being close enough to stop the fire. It was wrapping a bandage with shaking hands. It was showing up in the exact second your family needs you most. Tuna stared down at Henry, watching his tiny chest rise and fall. Her arm throbbed under the bandage, but the fear inside her was slowly draining away. She could still hear the explosion in her mind, still feel the flame, but she could also feel Alex's arm around her, steady and real. And that steadiness was stronger than the memory. Alex kissed Tuna's hair lightly, voice barely a whisper. "I won't let you go through this alone," he said. Tuna closed her eyes, and a tear slipped down. But this time, it wasn't only pain. It was relief. Outside, the wind moved through the garden, rustling leaves. Inside, in a kitchen that had almost become a nightmare, the three of them sat together under soft sunset light, holding on to each other like proof that they were still here. In a calm late afternoon, Tuna cooks soup while 2-month-old Henry rests in his crib, and Alex reads outside, unknowingly moments from disaster. A faint metallic smell grows as a gas cylinder leaks beneath the stove, unnoticed until a sudden hiss erupts and flames burst out, burning Tuna's arm. Henry wakes screaming as smoke fills the kitchen. Fighting pain and panic, Tuna grabs her baby and tries to shut the burner off while shielding him from heat. Hearing the explosion and cries, Alex drops his book and sprints inside. He shuts the gas valve, smothers the flames with a towel, and pulls Tuna and Henry into fresh air. With shaking hands, Alex rinses the burn and wraps Tuna's arm in gauze, overwhelmed by guilt and fear. Tuna reassures him they're safe, and he holds both mother and child close as the sunset light returns proof they survived and their bond deepened.